easy, but okay, I'd like to call this special meeting of the Fargo School Board to order. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for coming out again on an early Friday morning. Just so that we know, we have Rick Steen, Linda Boyd, and John Strand on the phone. The reason for this meeting is to discuss and approve the HVAC projects at Lewis and Clark and Clara Barton, as well as the school construction loan application for this state. So, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Robin?
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in the room in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. On the phone?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, same sign? Approved. So our first topic is discussion of HVAC projects in general. Because of the way our meeting last time went, we wanted to see whether there was any more general discussion that anyone had prior to the specific discussion of the schools. So I'm offering that as an opportunity at this time. Brock?
Madam President, members of the board, I thought I would do this at the end, but I can do this at this point. Just want to make sure that you're aware that as we look at these bids each time, I have been bringing you simply the bid tab for the construction. And as you may recall, in the time that I've been here, what I've tried to do every time we've done a project like this is bring you a bid tab that has construction, all the fees, contingency with a bottom line number. I will be doing that at the end of this project with all 6 of these that will have a master spreadsheet that has each project. The reason we haven't been doing that each time as we go is, as we discussed last time, depending on where we are once we have all of these open, we may revisit some alternates that might make sense for us to do now. So then that would change the contingency calculation and the fee calculation. So I want to make sure that I bring you the total as we go. But as you recall, we've already approved the contract with O&E with the fee. We've talked last time about what a contingency in that 3 to 5% range would be. So every piece of this you've already approved. I just will bring it to you in a different format. So know that that will be coming when we get all the bids open.
Thank you. Robin? Yeah.
I would appreciate as we go to a grid or spreadsheet of the above and below bids, so I have a running total of where we're at.
I guess holding out on the alternates, and I like that, but does any of that potentially, skew a base bid, where if you take an alternate with a base bid, it might have been awarded to a different contractor?
Members of the board, Rusty, what we do with each of these openings is we do address that exact question, as well as Jim Free and I have had meetings with Brent Wavra once the board approves issuing contracts, then we've sat down with the ones we've approved to this point, and we put all the alternates down and said, if you do 1, 2, and 3, it could affect this base. If you do these, it could affect that base. So we've done that analysis, and to this point, it has not affected that with the items that we would move forward with. So we're doing that analysis as we go to make sure we don't affect who would have gotten the low bid, and we're very comfortable that even with those that may be considered later, it keeps the current low bidders in place, and we're awarding the appropriate contracts.
Okay. Anyone else? In that case, we will move to the award bids of the Lewis and Clark HVAC project. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the bids that have been identified as the low bid as per memo number 91, including the alternates identified in that particular memo.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Brock?
Madam President, members of the board, one item of discussion I would like Brent Wavra to speak to, if you don't mind, would be the potential addition of an additional alternate here, which would be for the dual fuel boiler for Lewis and Clark. We did not include that at this point when we prepared this memo. The alternate that is on there is for another area of the building that we would be cooling. Each time as we go along, Brent and his company has been running analysis of the payback for the dual fuel boiler versus the high efficiency boiler to determine, should we do it or shouldn't we? What's the effect of having that backup versus being on the off-peak rates? There was additional analysis that needed to be done, both of the logistics of putting it into this building because of size and getting to the boiler room, as well as the payback analysis, which is why it was not part of the original memo, but I think it would be helpful for the board if Brent could speak to that to give you an idea of you may want to consider that at this time.
Exactly right. What we looked at here with all the existing schools that we have right now, there is a fuel oil system already in place. You're running dual fuel boilers right now. It came to our knowledge through the design process. There is a boiler manufacturer that does the high efficiency boiler with a dual fuel option on it. When you are running the dual fuel option, if you are running fuel oil, the boiler is not high efficiency any longer. It's just running at standard efficiencies. However, as Brock mentioned, when you remove the fuel oil option off a boiler, which is our standard boiler, was a high efficiency single fuel option, you go from an interruptible gas rate to a firm gas rate. That increase in gas rate is about 20% on there. What we did is do an analysis on there. If you would keep the dual fuel option, you would stay as the interruptible gas rate. You would keep that 20% reduction in your natural gas costs of what you're paying for a premium. Without getting into all the logistics and all the numbers within there, going to that dual fuel boiler is about a 4-year payback to stay with that dual fuel boiler due to the size of the Lewis and Clark facility. It's much larger than Madison. It's much larger than McKinley that we had there before. At the end of a 30-year life cycle, which is typically a boiler, at today's dollars right now, we're running about $5 a therm for gas, which is very, very inexpensive natural gas rates right now. 6-7 years ago, we're running about $11 a therm. So we are very, the gas is very inexpensive. Using those numbers though, and just projecting forward, after 30 years, you have about $100,000 savings in going with the dual fuel option. So the 2 points of interest to be concerned with is after 4 years, that boiler pays for it. The additional cost to accept that alternate pays for itself in 4 years. Your $100,000 to the good after 30 with today's natural gas costs. We understand right now the natural gas will stay about $5 a therm until about 2020. That's what they're kind of guaranteeing or projecting it to. After that, we don't know. You have the dual fuel option with the fuel oil tanks already there, the pumps are already there, the infrastructure is there. It's one of those facilities, one of these schools here that the recommendation, as Brock mentioned, is to accept that dual fuel option.
Other questions?
Just to follow up, Madam President, so if you look at your bid tab, Brent, I'm looking at that now, that would be alternate number 6, correct?
For Lewis and Clark
3.
is alternate number 3.
3.
Excuse me, alternate number 3, yeah. So I'm just quickly getting you a total. And to your question, Rusty, it does not change the low bidder in that regard. Alternate number 3, if you'd like to do that, have a total price tag of $26,100, if I'm doing that right. Yep. So again, the reason it was not on the initial recommendation is when we opened this bid on Tuesday, there was some additional work that Brent and his team needed to do for us in analysis and really get some additional information. And I just thought it'd be helpful for you to have that information today. And if it is the board's desire, it would be the recommendation of administration and our design team to proceed with alternate 3 as well on Lewis and Clark for $26,100.
Rusty?
I'll make that motion.
Hang on, Rusty first and then next.
Oh, Rick can too, but I'll make the motion to accept alternate 3 for the dual fuel option.
Okay,
Second.
wait.
There's a motion.
There's a
on the floor.
motion on the floor, so we need to amend the motion. Or we can.
do that, or you can vote on that and then do.
Right, we can vote on the main motion and then come to the alternate, if that's easier and cleaner. Okay, so Rick, if that's okay, is there any more discussion on the main motion at this time? Okay, then we should have a roll call vote, Anne Marie, just because it's easier with people on the phone.
Boyd,
Aye.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Papacek, Steen,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Wallman. Yes. Goldenberg.
Yes. Okay, motion passes, thank you. Now, Rusty.
I'll make the motion to accept the alternate 3 for the dual fuel.
Moved and seconded. Any additional discussion on this motion? Okay, Anne Marie, if you wouldn't mind.
Johnson, Goldenberg,
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. So we move ahead with the work for Lewis and Clark. Next on the agenda is the award of bids for Clara Barton. Jim?
I'll move that we accept the low bids as provided to us in memo number 92 for the Clara Barton HVAC project, including alternate 2, alternate 4, and I guess alternate 1 as well.
second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Rusty?
Question for Brent, maybe you can just explain why this one was so much lower than your original estimate?
Rusty, there's three things, actually probably three things, not a couple things, but three things that we noticed through it. I think one of the biggest things that changed the reduction in cost from the base bid is literally a week before the project went out to bid, we were doing our second or third walk through the facility and found an opportunity to move the main infrastructure, HVAC ductwork and all the floors from the corridor into the classrooms, which kept us from tearing down all the intermediate ceilings within there. Jeremy Wolf is actually the one that brought that to our attention. It taxed our staff to go through and do a redesign at last minute essentially, but there was a couple $100,000 savings just that alone. The second thing is the bidders are getting very, very tight. I mean, we're getting phone calls from contractors now because there's been so many bids and these guys want these jobs. They're calling on minute $50 questions that you typically don't get when you do a single bid. Where I think this helps us as a whole, if we would have bid these things at one time, people are a little stronger with their bids, but as there's 6 projects that they go through, everybody wants to tighten their numbers to get better and better and better, and I think that's the second thing that we're seeing is these guys are squeezing every last dime out of their bids to put in there. So I think those are the two main reasons out there, and honestly, probably the third one is just being a little conservative on the estimate right away.
Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, Rusty?
This is more just a general question. Do you have a sense if we'll get more electrical bidders? I mean, on the last ones, we've only had a couple, and I know you can't tell it, but thankfully, it's a smaller piece of the pie.
Repeat, I was clearing my throat.
Oh, no, that's right. Electrical bidders, we've only had 2
Yes.
on the last several, and just if you have a sense if we'll be getting more in the last 2.
We are making phone calls all day long, calling all the contractors and, just making a recommendation that they go through and getting these bids. We are in the right spot to be bidding these things when we are, and we talked about that. The workload that's coming up here in the Fargo-Moorhead area is that the bubble is sitting out there, so the school district making the decision to go through and bid these things now is the correct opportunity. But the electrical contractors are seeing that progression of workload coming down the pipes. We're making those phone calls, asking other contractors that may have already received the low bid to maybe look at taking 2 projects on it. This last project, we had Rick Electric and Fritz on there. Fritz's first time bidding it. Next time they come through, I think they're going to be a little more competitive. It was their first shot at it, but I honestly can't speak for each contractor, but we are doing our due diligence to make the phone calls with Grants Mechanical coming through, they will be adding an electrical component within theirs when they bid it. They're doing both mechanical, electrical under one house, so that's going to definitely help us out as well. But we're trying.
Anyone else? Well, in that case, Anne Marie, could you please call the roll again?
Nelson,
Yes.
Papacek,
Yes.
Steen,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Wallman. Yes. Boyd,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes. Thank you. So we have awarded both the Lewis and Clark and the Clara Barton HVAC system bids. The next item is the school construction loan application. I'm sure you all read the memo, but just to refresh your memory, this was something that we wanted to do as a possible funding resource for our capital project, for our HVAC and school project. In order to make that application, as a board, we have to officially approve it in the boardroom, and then the minutes that reflect that approval have to be approved in the boardroom. So this is why we brought this to you today, so that the board could approve this application today, and then at our next regular meeting on Tuesday, we would be able to approve the minutes that reflect that authorization. That is, of course, assuming that you all still feel that we should move ahead with this application to the state. So with that introduction, in a motion? Jim?
Yeah, I move that we direct the administration to submit an application for a state school construction loan as per memo number 93.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any discussion or questions? All those in favor of submitting the application for construction loan, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any, good, thank you. Any opposed? Same sign? Thank you. Thank you all for coming out this morning again. I appreciate your time. Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 25th, our regular time, and we will have another special meeting, one more next Friday. So, oh, Brock, you had something?
Yes, just a reminder, Madam President, members of the board, we will be walking in the day of the meeting, our next opening for this project. So you'll be looking for a late edition as late as 3:30 or 4, and then we'll have it available for you in the boardroom that night, because the opening is at 2 o'clock Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks again for coming out. Have a nice weekend.